Hi, and welcome to this episode of our Market Update series here on RBC TV. I'm Will Harding. I'm the Manager of Global Marketing for Destination Canada, and we're here to talk to international experts to provide RBC sellers like you with valuable insights and tips that you can use to improve your business at Rendez-vous Canada or business in general. Our guest today is Rupert Peters. He is the Regional Managing Director of Core Markets at Destination Canada, who's going to talk to us today about our UK market, but specifically. So, Rupert, thank you very much for coming on the show today. It's always good to see you.
Likewise, Will. Good to be here. Bonjour tout le monde.
Yeah, so, Rupert, let's kick it off with what are some of the three key things that sellers need to know about the UK market?
Well, thanks, Will. I think the first key thing that folks should know is that the UK market is on a real roll right now. The momentum for Canada is pretty impressive. We saw a 6% increase last year, and we're looking at a range of between 6 and 9% further increase this year. And I think the other key thing that we're seeing right now is that the challenge, if you like, is that with the UK market being a resurgent market,
Right.
a lot of NTOs, a lot of our competitor national tourist offices are all vying for this new or refound UK visitor. So we've got our work cut out for us. We've got obviously increased capacity coming into Canada from the UK with the likes of WestJet and Air Canada bringing new routes and adding and upgauging capacity. But we've got our work cut out. There's a lot of competition right now in the UK market. The third key thing I think folks should know is that we have a real opportunity out of the UK market because we've got some 3 million Brits that are really actively considering Canada right now, and our challenge, of course, is to convert them. So bring it on for Rendezvous.
So, a lot of competition, but Canada has a lot to offer this particular customer. So, lots to gain by meeting with tour operators. What are, in the tour operator's mind in the UK, what's the difference between a good and a bad appointment?
Well, I think a good appointment, Will, is for folks to do their homework in advance. And when I say homework, it is to, if you're going to meet with one of the UK tour operators, go online, Google their name and look at their profile, look at how they position themselves online. You'll get a really good feel for the kind of customers that those tour operators are going after. And I think that'll give you an instant gauge as to whether or not your product is a fit for their customers. So my number one tip is do your homework in advance. My number two tip, and aligned to that number one tip, is do your homework, but then do your follow-up after the meeting. It's very, very important that the tour operators hear from you afterwards. So do your planning. Planning and preparation is key.
It's funny, that's pretty good advice for any market, really, when it comes to Destination Canada or any appointment. I've heard some of our team say that active listening, too, is pretty important, making sure that you talk less and listen more to the needs of the individual operator. So good advice. Now, the UK itself, Rupert, your UK team has been working very, very hard. You're bringing a massive delegation of tour operators to RBC in Montreal this year. What are some of the highlights of these businesses that are coming, and what do you think their objectives are going to be?
Sure. First and foremost, I mean, we're absolutely delighted, tickled pink, as we say here in the UK, Will, because we've got 56 UK buyers coming to Rendezvous Montreal this year. And that's a new record for the number of Brits coming to Rendezvous. So congratulations to Montreal, and my thanks to the team here in the UK for really working very hard to bring those numbers to where they are. What we're seeing, one of the trends that we're seeing actually amongst the tour operators that are coming from the UK is that some of them are bringing more than one delegate, and that's really interesting. And the more we dig into that, the more we realize that Canada is becoming an even bigger proposition for the UK trade than it was before. And there are many reasons for that. But some of our tour operators are bringing two delegates, some are bringing three delegates, and one's actually bringing five delegates. And what we're seeing is that some of those operators are saying we're not just there for product development, we're also there to listen and to learn about how we can market the Canadian products back home in the UK. So that's an interesting trend that we're seeing.
Are there some standout companies that are coming to Rendezvous this year that perhaps will be new to a lot of the sellers?
Well, there's one in particular that's new called Magnetic North, and they've hitherto been focusing on Scandinavia and the Nordic markets, and they're wanting to bring Canada into their portfolio, and they're looking for lots of different experiences, and they're a really exciting young company that we're very happy to see at Rendezvous.
It's interesting. I mean, Destination Canada, of course, can't be in every market, but there's still budding interest from a lot of non-Destination Canada markets. I know Netherlands this year, a lot of people coming from there, and so it looks like some good opportunity for the Nordic countries for those provinces and individual businesses that are selling there.
Sure, and I think the business. Sorry, you also asked me about the business objectives, Will, and to answer that part of the question, business objectives for the UK trade are clear. One is to cement existing relationships. A lot of them are going to be meeting people that they've met before, but it's a question of maintaining those relationships and trying to leverage even more opportunity out of those relationships. But they're also, of course, looking for new product. We've got many niche operators. About a third of the companies coming to Rendezvous this year from the UK are what we would call niche operators, and they're looking for specific products that are going to stand them, if you like, single them out, make them shine amongst their competitors. So there's going to be, I think, a lot of activity on the floor this year.
Wow. So what experiences are tour operators, really looking for when they're coming this year? What parts of the country are they particularly keen on sending visitors to?
Well, the great thing about the British market, Will, is that Brits are born explorers, and they're not just coming to one or two provinces. They're coming to all of our provinces and territories, and so the UK tour operators are going to be wanting to look at the whole gamut of experiences, if you like, that Canada has to offer. So, but if I was really looking at the key trends this year, I'd say probably because Rendezvous is in Montreal this year, maybe some of the operators will be looking to upgauge their Eastern products. They'll be looking at it as an opportunity to look particularly at some of their Eastern products. I think also because we've got a lot of new capacity coming in this year in terms of air capacity, we'll be probably seeing some UK tour operators looking at some of our key cities in Canada and looking to upweight their urban product. I'm seeing a lot of capacity coming into Toronto, and I would think that some of our larger tour operators will be looking at their urban product portfolio and saying, you know what, maybe it's time we profile Toronto, for example, as a city break destination out of the UK market. I wouldn't be surprised if some of the larger operators will be looking at some of the Toronto product with a very keen eye this year.
So we've covered a fair amount of ground at a high level over the course of our time today. Some great advice for operators. If you had to wrap it all up with a bow and provide our listeners with, what are the critical pieces of advice, what would you want to leave them with?
Well, I think the critical piece of advice is that the hallmark, if you like, of the distribution chain within the UK is primarily tour operators will procure products through receptive operators. So as much as you'll be meeting tour operators face to face, remember that it's the receptive tour operators that are a key dynamic in the distribution chain. So if you don't know whether your product is carried by one of the receptive operators, then certainly do your homework and speak to one of the receptive operators and make sure that your product is carried in their portfolio.
Thanks, Rupert. I think that's good advice. And so we've been ending most of our segments with a little bit of a game, looking for certainly non-English speaking markets to give us a little bit of insight about how you would greet or a key phrase critical to a successful business meeting. Are there any cultural differences between Canadians and Brits in the UK that we sometimes take for granted, but would help, create a really smooth evening or a really smooth engagement of our UK tour operators?
Well, I don't think there's any real strong cultural differences, Will. I think just make sure that you bring a little bit of humour into the conversation. I'm sure that's always appreciated by the Brits.
and not lost on them for sure. That's good. Rupert, it's always a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you so much for everything that you've shared today. Um, and for our listeners, for more information on Canada's markets, you can always visit www.canada.travel/corporate. Our corporate site has lots of research available to you. And don't forget to check the RBC website for more RBC TV episodes and more valuable content. I'm Will Harding saying keep exploring. Talk soon.